Yeah, so she'd get home late. My sister and I would kind of make ourselves dinner and stuff. We used to make ourselves brownie batter for dinner and just eat the batter.
That's so bad.
No. We'd eat pancake batter and like we'd put the eggs in it and everything. Just eat raw eggs and pancake batter.
It's terrible. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Solafide podcast. I'm AJ. Today with me, I have Adam Shipp.
How's it going? What's up?
Yeah, what's up, man? Hey, what is technically your position of the Sacramento Youth Center?
Technically, I volunteer at the Sacramento Youth Center.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm the co-founder. So we always joke that I don't actually work here. So whenever, I don't want to do something, I just say I don't want to work. I don't work here, and I walk away. But Raquel and I founded the youth center.
Very cool.
Her Slack profile does say Adam's boss, though. So I don't know. What's the organizational structure? Who knows?
Yeah, it's like almost like a LinkedIn profile. It's like CEO of Adam.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so technically technically right now I'm a volunteer, and I just help out, but yeah, I'm a co-founder. So I kind of as a co-founder of a small organization, you kind of wear all hats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today I was, answering voicemails that were left on our system,
Emails, I'm sure.
Yeah. Emails, ordering t-shirts, looking at things that need to be fixed on the building, and
Yeah.
just doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah. I've had a cough, by the way, for about a month. I should disclose that. It's just left over from when I had COVID like a month and a half ago. And then now it's like I had like a little lung thing that happened. And now I'm slowly getting better. I hope you're okay with that. So can you tell us about all the different programs you have here at the Sacramento Youth Center?
Yeah. We do a lot. So we're trying to do like holistic health here. So the first thing everybody sees when we walk in is what we call the drop-in center. So our drop-in center is, we got 2 pool tables, a ping pong table, PlayStations, Xbox,
Right.
couches. Just when you think of a youth center, it's kind of what you think. Really welcoming environment. Mm-hmm. Kids can come in, charge their phone, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't grow up in this area, but I spent a lot of my youth here because I went to the church right down the street.
Yeah.
And man, there was nothing like this. Even our church, like my parents had to step up as youth pastors and stuff.
Yeah.
Just so we could have something out here, because this area, it's known for a lot of crime activity and obviously like poor and in between the blessings, like what we used to say at our church. And a lot of like homeless, unhoused struggles. And so with that, like there was nothing really in this community, and to see like the Sacramento Youth Center pop up out here and have like an impact as it does, especially on the youth, because they're our next generation, I think is super important.
Yeah.
So with the different programs here, like if you can name all like the different things.
Yeah. So the drop-in center is number 1. You don't have to know us to utilize that.
Yeah.
As long as you're 14 to 24, you respect us, respect the space, respect others, you're welcome in that space. And we try to do something different. Like I don't know. When I think of youth center, I think of like a small room with a dusty couch and bags of donated clothes and a TV, one TV. And we had been inspired by a youth center down in Escalon, actually, to see how beautiful a youth center could actually be. So we wanted to make the most beautiful space we could. And so we tried to create a really welcoming space. On top of the youth center, we have mental behavioral health programs. And we wanted them to flow seamlessly with the youth center. So the drop-in center is like the carrot at the end of the stick, bringing them in. Yeah. But what we really want to do is get them into one of our programs. So like our cornerstone program is something we call peer mentor training. Mm-hmm. And so the federal government put out 8 dimensions of wellness. And if you're, healthy in all the 8 dimensions, you're a pretty well-rounded person. So it's like mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, physically, financially, occupationally. And then the last one's spiritually, but we changed that to directionally just because we're working with public schools and kids of other faiths and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we take the kids through all 8 dimensions, give them tools on how to be healthy, and happy and successful in all of those areas. But then we also give them the tools to pass on that health to their peers. And so we call it peer mentor training, where we're training up the youth to be their own catalyst of change in youth culture.
Yeah. It's almost like a leader in their circle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we're giving them all those tools, giving them the tools to pass on the health. And that's kind of the foundation program of everything we have going on here. In addition to that, we have a lot of other stuff. We have, we're sitting in the cafe. The cafe is our workforce development program. So this cafe is open to the public. Anyone can come in and buy coffee here. It's a third wave coffee. It's amazing coffee. You got to check it out. But also it's run by kids. The youth are running it. We're training up youth that wouldn't have opportunities to be in like a normal job. And they can work here and get experience, and because it's a higher end coffee shop, it looks better on a resume than even Starbucks.
Yeah. So you hear that? Come and buy some coffee because you're supporting the youth here.
That's right. Yep. True. And so so we do workforce development, we do the peer mentor training, and then we have like just peer support groups. So a lot of our staff are what are called peer specialists. So peer specialists, they're anyone. Anyone's a peer specialist. It's where you have a lived experience and you use that, you've overcome that lived experience and you use that to help others get through similar experiences.
Right.
So we have a peer specialist who was in foster care, was homeless, mom attempted suicide, horrible things happened to him when he was a child. He's using that experience now to help youth who are going through similar experiences.
Yeah.
So if they're in foster care, if they're dealing with homelessness, he can connect with them, give them the tools that he used to overcome and get healthy.
Literal firsthand experience with that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And so that's just one peer specialist. We have a refugee peer specialist. We have a peer specialist that grew up here in Del Paso Heights. And we have a peer specialist that has family members dealing with mental health. And so through that, we have a pretty wide experience of peer specialists that can connect with their students on that real level.
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty cool program, and they're able to really bring change. And we've seen change in the students in an amazing way.
Yeah, I mean, even having like some of those peer specialists are so well-rounded in so many different areas too. A lot of them have different talents. Like I know one of the guys that goes to our church.
Yeah.
But like even him, he's worked in so many different types of youth programs and everything. And I just think it's important to have those well-rounded people that love working with the youth and love seeing the change in some of these kids' lives because they weren't given certain opportunities, but now here they have an opportunity.
Yeah.
So the All of You, None of Me program, it's so unique to any youth center program I've ever seen.
Yeah.
What type of impact are they making in the community?
So, well, first of all, Antonio and Johnny and everybody involved in the studio, they bring us so much street cred because I have zero street cred.
Yeah.
But they're actually like cool.
But you look like you could be hanging out at the skate park down the street. So
yeah. But like they, for all of my awkwardness, they make up with it with their legit coolness. So so the kids love being back there, love being in the studio.
Yeah.
Love making music.
I mean, who doesn't love music in general too? And if you have an opportunity to like, if you're like, man, every kid says I want to make music. And if you have that opportunity to at least learn and study under somebody who knows a lot about it, like it's so cool.
Well, I think it's amazing too. It's not just a youth center with a studio. It's a working studio.
Yeah.
So Antonio and Johnny are actively making music in there all the time. and Antonio's making a living off of it. And so it's really, really amazing, like that it's a working studio, but then it's also giving back to the community.
Right.
It's,
I know.
It's not one or the other.
I believe he's even at a concert tonight, like with, like rocking a stage with a lot of artists too. And even him being in like the Christian hip hop market, it's so important because he's able to give a voice even outside of the program and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And just having positive messages in hip hop music is so important.
Right. Yeah. It's like once you take off the veil and realize that a lot of this like making money, promoting sex and drugs and alcoholism tends to it feeds these kids more than it does the adults, I feel like. And when they become adults, it's continuously feeding their addictions and stuff.
Yeah. And one thing Antonio and I've talked about a lot is producing rap music is one of the things gangs in this area do.
Yeah.
And that's a way they hook young people in. And they'll take a young aspiring rapper and say like, oh, if you join our gang, we'll pay for studio time, we'll do all that. And so if we can give an alternative to that, I mean, what we're doing is like actual gang prevention, actual violence prevention. Now it's really early in the process.
Yeah. And a lot of that happens at like, I feel like, I don't know the statistics, but from growing up, I feel like 10, 11, 12 years old, that's when a lot of that first starts in a lot of kids' lives, like pre-teen, going into their teens, they're already in gangs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it's our whole philosophy here at the youth center is kind of like idle hands make the the devil's workshop or whatever.
Right.
And so we're just always trying to give kids something to do, a positive place that kids can be, that youth can be, where they're respected, others treat them with respect, they treat each other with respect, and it gives them a way out.
Yeah. So I had produced a podcast that your wife was on, and I had no idea you guys lived in Africa for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, we lived in Nairobi for a year and a half.
Can you tell me about that experience? Like, how did you sign on to saying, I'm going to live in Africa? How long were you out there?
A year and a half, yeah.
How did you even sign on to that? Like,
yeah, so it's kind of a funny story because I had grown up in church, always wanted to like do missions work, always wanted to do something cool. And that movie Black Hawk Down came out. You remember that movie?
Yeah, there's a song it's like I don't know. I'm like weirdly picturing the movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So at the beginning, it's like it shows like the famine and everything. That's like and like that beginning scene always struck me. And so I'd always wanted to like go to Somalia and like help people there.
Yeah, I seen that as a kid in the movies with my parents because my dad was super into war movies and stuff.
Yeah.
So like going with him to see that was like such a crazy experience. I remember it vividly, but. I think it's important for some kids to see like what happens in other countries because they don't realize how good they have it sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. Yeah, so that beginning, like the beginning part with the famine and everything, I was just like, I really wanted to help people in Africa and specifically in Somalia.
Yeah.
And around 2011, 2012, I think, there was another big famine in Somalia. And a bunch of Somali refugees started pouring over the border into Kenya.
Wow.
And Raquel sent me a story one day and was like, hey, this is how we're going to go. And and what's kind of funny is like, it was always my thing that I wanted to do. But then all of a sudden, like something awoke in her and she'd been researching all this stuff and found a couple people that were doing schools and stuff.
Yeah.
And we did an interview and we moved out there.
That's how you know you got a real one too, which is like, hey, we're doing this.
Yeah.
This is your dream, but now it's also my dream, and this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna help these kids and families and whatnot. Yeah.
So she quit her corporate job and we helped start a school.
That's so cool.
You want a glass of water?
I have some right here. It's just from talking.
Yeah.
I haven't been talking that much too.
Yeah.
And so like my chest has just been all screwed up from it.
Yeah, so we helped start a school. We're working on a team. And I was a teacher. She was the administrator. and the school was going great, really good, and we loved our time there. We lived in a neighborhood that was almost exclusively Somalis, and we loved the people, loved the adventure, and then Raquel and I decided to have a baby, and we were planning on having our first son in Nairobi.
Wow.
And I thought that was going to be kind of cool because he's my wife's Latina, Mexican descent. And so I was like, oh, he's going to be half white, half Mexican, African American.
Yeah.
But things didn't work out with our team leader and everything, so we had to come home. And we came home, but we still wanted to continue working with refugees, loved working with refugees. And little did we know, well, at the time we were like, we got to get out to the Bay Area. That's probably where all the refugees are.
Right.
Or we had heard, there's lots of Somalis in Minneapolis or San Diego.
Yeah. I didn't know that until I started watching this guy's YouTube channel that he's out in Minnesota and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had no idea.
Tons of Somalis there. Yeah. So we're like, we got to figure that out. And then we had owned a house in Sacramento before we left, and our renters moved out. So we moved back in. And then we met with World Relief. I don't know if you've heard of World Relief, but they're a refugee resettlement agency. And we're like, hey, we'd like to volunteer. And they're like, yeah, tons of refugees are coming to Sacramento.
Right.
They're like, a ton of Afghan refugees are coming to Sacramento, actually more than any other city in the United States. And so Raquel and I were like, okay. And so she started volunteering, teaching English and stuff. And then I started a youth program on the schools. And we did that, and then that just grew and grew and grew because more and more refugees were coming. We'd just, like, these kids come, they didn't speak any English. They'd just smile at us. We'd make them play crazy games,
Yeah.
And teach, like, kind of a similar curriculum to what we're teaching now.
Right.
And at first we started meeting, we were in a meeting in a fellowship hall at a church, and then we got to be on campus at school, and then it just kept on growing and growing. And then one day I was walking into class, and one of our best students was standing outside, and the classroom we were in was like, it was dusty and terrible and just really not a great place. And the campus security treated everybody kind of like it was like a prison.
Yeah.
It was just I did not like being on campus there. And I was walking in, I was like, hey, Farouk, are you coming to class? And he's like, no. And I was like, yeah, I get it. He's like, but whatever else you have going on, let me know. I want to hang out. I want to hang out with you guys. And I'm like, man. And it clicked. Like, we need something where they can access us all the time.
Yeah.
A place where we can just hang out. A place where we can just spend time together. Because we always knew, like, mentoring doesn't happen in the classroom. It happens, like, when we're driving up to camp, or when we're playing ping pong at camp, or when we're sitting at a campfire, or when we jump on Fortnite together, or whatever.
It's all about community, and having that community is so important for the youth too.
Yep. And so that was kind of the day the idea that the youth center was born. Like, what if we had a space?
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, because this place has been so many different things too in the past.
Yeah. And so that kind of sparked the idea of, like, creating a place where we could have the program every day of the week. They could come every day of the week. Because, even if they were in soccer practice or leadership or something, they couldn't come to class because we were only on campus one day a week. And so, the storyline of, like, Nairobi led directly to where we're at now.
That was a lot of preparation for you guys opening this. I feel like hearing that story, it feels like, I'm gonna say God, like, even though you guys, like you say, obviously working with the school systems, switch the definitions and the words a little bit to, like, work with the school systems, but even God was, like, prepping you for this space too, right?
Yeah.
Like out in Nairobi and all that. Hey, before you finish this podcast, have you gotten our merch? We got new merch. Solafide Podcast Classic Tees on solafide.store. All you got to do is go to solafide.store. That's the URL. That's it. Solafide.store. And right there, you can get our classic tee. We got more merch on the way, but until then, we got the one tee for you. So with the one tee, you can get it, purchase it, tag us, we'll post it, get your merch. What about the refugee program here? Like, how many kids are you guys interacting with? Like, are they like, do they know English for the most part? You know, I always wonder that because like, I work in a place where we get a lot of like Middle Easterns and a lot of Russians and stuff, and we don't get a lot of people that speak English. So do you guys like help them with that type of stuff too, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the English levels are low, really low. With kids, usually it's a little higher though because they're so into media.
Yeah.
They're watching a lot of American media. But it's still, communication's a challenge, especially if they want it to be a challenge, you know, if they're like behaving badly or something.
Yeah,
and like trying to correct it. They like to hide behind the language barrier a little bit. So we've probably served about 500 students this year.
Wow.
Through programs. And I'd say, I mean, close to half the students we're serving are refugee students. And mostly almost entirely from Afghanistan. Although we are going to start having working with Ukrainians. And, and we've had, you know, an Arab once in a while or an Egyptian or something like that. But yeah, the challenge just is language is always a challenge. Like I said, with the kids it's a little easier. But their language level is definitely, when Raquel and I started working with refugees, it was a different situation. Afghanistan hadn't fallen yet.
Wow.
So you're dealing with, we were dealing with people from Kabul, people from a metropolitan city, you know, pretty Americanized, been working with the American military a lot, right? Then since August of 2021, when I think that was when Afghanistan fell, there's a new group of refugees, and they're just completely different.
Yeah.
It's a completely different life experience for them. They didn't get a visa and then come over with refugee status.
Yeah.
They're pouring onto that plane, holding onto the wing, you know.
I mean, we've all seen those videos too of them like struggling to even escape.
Yeah. So they're a lot more rural, a lot less English, like because they weren't working with the military as much.
Yeah.
The English levels are a lot lower. So it's just a different group of people. So we're meeting a whole new challenge compared to when we first started.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, man. I mean, it's like America is such a big melting pot too nowadays, and obviously we're accepting to everybody, but it's like we want to make sure that they have the right tools too. You know what I mean? And I feel like we don't equip people enough.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also why we see a lot more like homeless and unhoused or whatever. And like you see it in the streets, and it's like, well, those could have been people that just came from a different country too, didn't have a lot and still don't have a lot and weren't given a lot of opportunities here. So even to have a place for like kids to come like this is super important. How can people give into the programs? Like, do you guys accept donations, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Accept donations.
Yeah. Is it like your guys' website or?
Yeah, go to sacyouthcenter.org/donate. We love volunteers. We love in-kind donations. So, you know.
Yeah, I guess like it doesn't even have to just be money. People can just get involved and help out, right?
If they have a service, you know, we've had photographers come and offer their services, or construction workers come. We had an electrician come and redo all our exit signs were all dead. Yeah. And so he came through, and he was an old electrician, so he just volunteered his time and redid all of our,
especially in a commercial building, it's pretty important.
Yeah, it was for our fire inspection, so it was like perfect timing. So people have donated in all kinds of ways, and there's many ways to give. Right. Just reach out to, go to sacyouthcenter.org and reach out to us.
So Real Life Church, owns this building, how much do they do behind the scenes of like making sure you guys are good and everything and giving you guys what you need?
Real Life has been an amazing landlord for sure. We wouldn't be where we're at without Real Life.
Right.
They donated their van to us, which has helped us get students around. They're giving us a great deal on rent, and they've just donated to the program a bunch.
Yeah.
Right now we're trying to purchase the building from them, and so and still they're just being so gracious throughout the whole process, just being amazing, and making sure that we feel loved and valued.
Right.
And then we're trying to do our best to make sure we can bless them as much as they've blessed us by giving them a good purchase price and all that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Now, when it comes to serving the youth in the community, can you give us a story of like a youth that's had a big turnaround from here?
Yeah. We have a student. We'll call him Michael. I don't want to use his real name, but we'll call him Michael
for sure.
And he came in, and as soon as he walked in, his eyes lit up and was like, "What is this place?"
Yeah.
And we're like, it's the Sacramento Youth Center. He was like, I had no idea this was here. I was just looking for some place to charge my phone.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, you can charge your phone here. He's a young man, and he sits down and starts charging his phone. And one of our peer specialists, Mason, actually just sits down and starts chatting with him. While he's chatting with him, he realized he needed to get re-enrolled in school.
Wow.
So he took him back to the school and got him. We have a school on site.
Was dropped out completely?
Yeah, he was out of school.
Wow.
So he took him back. We have a charter school on site. Took him back to the school, got him enrolled. And then he was like, what else do you need? And after talking to him for a while, he had a lot of needs. The reason he found us was because he was using an app that people who were experiencing homelessness use on places to charge their phone.
Wow.
We didn't even know that app existed.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of that.
Yeah. But we're on it, and it says this is a safe place you can charge your phone. And so he showed up, and our peer specialist connected with him, got him enrolled in school, got him the connected to a housing program, got him all the kinds of things he needed. Turns out his girlfriend was pregnant, and who was also homeless.
Wow.
Got her connected with the healthcare she needed, and we're able to like meet a bunch of his physical needs. Then he started getting in programs. We started mentoring him. He joined a task force we were hosting here. It wasn't ours, but it was just put on by another group in Sacramento, and we have a great space, so we host a lot of those.
Yeah.
And it was called the Youth Advisory Board. And it was a group of homeless youth that would get together, and they were advising. I can't remember exactly who they're advising, either the federal government or the state or something on youth homelessness and funding needed. And through his work on that youth advisory board, Sacramento County, the whole county, got awarded $6 million in funding.
That's insane.
To combat youth homelessness. And this is a guy who just came in because we were on an app.
Yeah.
Just a young man. And then he came by the other day, and Raquel said she didn't recognize him because he just looked so healthy. He walked in, and his ears were, he was just smiling ear to ear. And we're like, how are you doing? And he's like, good, so good. I'm going to go sign the lease on an apartment right now. And he's just so happy. He's like, he went from just an absolute desperate situation.
Dude, that's so emotional too.
To like, I think it's been about a year later, and his housing stabilized. He's living there's a place up here called The Grove. I think that's where he's living, but it's a place that caters to homeless youth. and now he's getting his own place. His baby's here.
Wow.
His baby's healthy, and he was saying like at first when they had their baby and they were homeless, baby couldn't crawl, and he was talking about when he gets an apartment, the baby will be able to crawl.
Wow.
So happy. It was just amazing.
That's so amazing,
Yeah.
man. Way to make me almost cry right now, man. That's such an emotional story. What was your upbringing like for your life?
My upbringing, I mean, I was pretty privileged. I grew up in a like upper middle class family, maybe middle class, and but I was kind of a latchkey kid too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, took care of myself most.
I feel like a lot lot were.
Yeah.
You're from the 90s or?
Yeah, I grew up in the 90s. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was like,
born
I'm a
in
90s
86.
kid, so yeah.
Born in 86. So, but I mean, like my family, we went to Disneyland every year, went camping, went to Yosemite, did all of those kinds of things. And
same, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always been motivated by unfairness. And even when I wanted to go to Somalia, right, is because I didn't feel like it was fair. Like, why is it fair that they just because they're born there, they have to live like that? That's horrible. Like, that's terrible. Just because you have the unluck of being born somewhere, it dictates your life. And so that really motivates me now too. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I don't, just because you're born in Del Paso Heights doesn't mean you do. Like, we deal with students never been to the ocean, never been to Tahoe, never been out of Sacramento.
Yeah, the first time they see snow, it's such a trip too.
Yeah.
I've taken my brother used to have a program where he would take youth to the snow and teach them how to snowboard.
Yeah.
And just the look on their face, it's like they're in like winter wonderland, never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's incredible. And, or like, the ocean. People seeing the ocean for the first time.
Yeah, there's people definitely in this area that have never been out of the limits of Sacramento, let alone Del Paso Heights.
Yeah. And I like those things from my childhood I loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like they're a big part of like going to Yosemite is a big part of like why I love nature and like I don't litter and things like that, you know, and I want to take care of the planet. And going to Disneyland is one of the reasons I love like rides and storytelling and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think every kid should experience those things. Should have those experiences. And so one of our big like founding ideas with the youth center is like we want to give kids from Del Paso Heights the same experiences as kids from Rockland and Roseville.
Right.
And with the youth center, we always joke we're trying to make a youth center that Rockland's jealous of.
Yeah.
And that these kids get access to.
It's funny because I used to work in Rockland at Destiny Church too. So yeah, I know what you mean. They have a lot of like they're very equipped out there.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, like if you're having emotional problems and you go to a wealthy school, they have the resources for that.
Mm-hmm.
Schools in this neighborhood don't.
Yeah.
They're not equipped. And especially when you're dealing with like the incoming refugee problem, or not, I shouldn't say problem. When you're dealing with the incoming refugee population, this is a population that has been severely traumatized. PTSD, like I can't even imagine the things they've seen, the things they've witnessed, the things they've had to deal with.
The amount of time they've traveled to come here, it's usually not a good road coming here.
No, yeah. And they lived in camp, just horrible situations. Mm-hmm. And then you're dropped into, usually, like let's say, I've had students like this, right? They're like 16, 17. They lied to get in, they made themselves a little younger because it looks better on their refugee application.
Yeah.
So they get dropped into their freshman year of high school. Mm-hmm. They don't speak the language. They're way behind on school because they haven't been to school in 2 years because they've been working at a sweatshop for 25 cents a day or whatever.
Wow. Yeah.
They, and then you're just dropped in and you don't know anyone. You don't have any resources. No one speaks your language. You don't know what's going on. I had one of my students once say, like, I feel so lonely. He's like, when I was in Turkey at the refugee camp, I want to make friends, I'd just go to the park. It's like no one goes to the park here, and you definitely don't make friends at the park.
Yeah.
And so they're dealing with this immense culture shock. And then they're just teenagers, which everyone struggles with being a teenager, and no one's dealing with their a lot of people focus on their refugee problems, but there's not a lot of people focusing on their teenage problems.
It's crazy too, because I feel like they're just teenagers, but they've lived the life of like a 40-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they live the life of a 40-year-old, but then they also have like the delayed adolescence too, where they'll act out like a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And you look at their behaviors. We have this a lot, dealing with kids at these center where we're like, you're 14, but you're acting like an 8-year-old. And I mean, it's not just refugees that's true with. It's anyone with immense trauma, right? They'll start acting like...
Wherever they have the trauma is typically where their mental status is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife grew up in this area too, and she was lucky enough to have a program at her school. She went to probably like 12 different schools, but one of the schools she went to, she had a program that allowed her to go camping for the first time, allowed her to get out of Sacramento, and but she's told me stories and stories. And sorry, Alyssa, but I'm gonna tell a little bit of she's lived in a storage unit, you know what I mean, when she was a kid.
Yeah.
For months at a time with her mom, and they used to steal pallets behind stores to go sell them. And by the time I met my wife, she was 12 and I was probably like 13 at the time. She had so much more of a lived experience than I ever did, even though I had opportunities to go do so much more things.
Yeah.
The limited opportunities she had led her to a life of, figuring things out on her own. Her mom went to jail when she was just a teenager, and she was taking herself to school in this neighborhood, and still managed to have straight A's and got a scholarship to go to college and everything. So, man, it's just
that kind of motivation to me is wild. As a kid, like to be that motivated.
Yeah. But she's like,
I would have just ate cereal and watched TV all day.
Man, you could have just caught me never doing my homework and watching cartoons,
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, like even just like, so my dad worked a night shift, so he slept all day. And then my mom would get home, both my parents worked, and my mom would get home like, I don't know, she worked in Martinez. We lived out near Pittsburgh, so it was about an hour away or whatever.
Yeah, towards Antioch.
Yeah, so she'd get home late, but usually like my sister and I would kind of make ourselves dinner and stuff. But we used to make ourselves brownie batter for dinner and just eat the batter.
That's so bad.
No.
Yeah.
We'd eat pancake batter and like we'd put the eggs in it and everything. Just eat raw eggs and pancake batter.
It's terrible.
And like we always had
it's like a trip to salmonella real quick.
I know. I don't know how we didn't get sick.
Yeah.
But
probably made you stronger, honestly.
Yeah. The like I think about those things and I just think about like people like your wife. Like that was not in my DNA.
Yeah. And she was like the third child, and she had a younger brother too. Even her sister had like 3 kids by the time she turned 19. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And all her siblings are all from different dads, and it's a real like sad story in some of it. But she was able to turn it around and make it good for herself. And I want her to share her testimony sometime with you too, because it's just such a big one for this neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I remember when I used to come out here, people like when I would hang out with people from here, they're like, "Oh, it's Del Paso Heights," and unfortunately, they would say, "You're welcome to like the dirty, poor, hungry DPH." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what they used to tell us, people that were from this neighborhood, and we used to come to church out here. And it's unfortunate to hear that because in a sense, it's true. But you could, with programs like this, have a good outcome. And luckily, my wife was able to have a good outcome from a program like this.
Yeah.
I don't want to take too much of your time. I kind of want to wrap up the podcast around there. I do want you to, however, tell people again where to donate.
Yeah.
And where to also get involved and help.
Yeah. Donate at sacyouthcenter.org/donate. Go to our website, check out everything we do. Go to our Instagram. We got that's the best place to find out what we're doing, what's going on. It's hard to really explain the youth center without experiencing the youth center because the building is so huge and we're doing so many things. The other day I gave a tour and this lady was just like, none of this is on your website. And I'm like, yeah, it's hard to capture in pictures and video, but it's an incredible space and we're doing incredible things. And it's not me, it's my team.
Right.
And we're just meeting the need. The need is so great, but it's been quite a privilege to be here and doing what we're doing.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you for watching the podcast, guys. Go ahead and subscribe, like, comment down below. Adam will tell you.
Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification.
Hit that bell notification.
What's something that Yao